quick chat from the Initiative in Computational Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences through the Faculty of Computing and Data Sciences at Boston University. Today we'll be hearing from Dr. Eugenio Menegon. Dr. Menegon is an Associate Professor of History within the College of Arts and Sciences at Boston University. He previously directed the Center for the Study of Asia. He's currently co-investigator for the China Historical Christian Database. His research employs methods from the digital humanities to uncover how Catholic missionaries worked as scientists and artisans in order to gain influence within the Chinese imperial court. His analysis shows how these networks of individuals and institutions came to influence the state of sociocultural and economic relations between China and Italy. Please welcome Dr. Menegon.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Today I'm going to talk about the development of the China Historical Christian Database, CHCD. The names you see on this slide are those of the two principal co-investigators, Dr. Darrell Ireland, who will speak later, myself, and our graduate student, Margaret Rauch, and our manager at the moment, Yi Zhang. Here you find the links if you're interested in going to both our website and the actual database while I'm talking, and play yourself on your own computer, and some information on myself. Today's presentation will be divided in these parts. First, the first part will be a little bit about our history. Then we will talk about the movement from analog to digital, Christianity as network, technical infrastructure, and project management. Let's start with our history between 2018, when we started, and the present. We are based at the Center for Global Christianity and Mission here at Boston University, part of the School of Theology. It was established in 2001, and in 2016, several areas of research priority have been identified. Among them, one is China, and this database is part of that area of priorities. Here you can see a screenshot of the site, the website of the center, with several of the digital projects of the center. And actually the center has been a pioneer at Boston University since the late 1990s in creating online resources for the study of global Christianity and mission. The inspiration for our project came in part from other existing projects from the past. In particular, the Ricci Roundtable, which was a database at the Ricci Institute at the University of San Francisco, which recently moved to Boston College, is now based here in Boston. It was a pioneering experiment with biographies and institutional entries about the history of Christianity in China and Sino-Western cultural relations. As you can see from this slide, the actual website still exists, but the data itself is no longer available because of changing in technology. And so one of the reasons we wanted to start our database is to continue this important pioneering work, and of course taking advantage of all the advances in computer science in the last 2 decades. Another couple of projects that have been important in inspiring us are the China Historical GIS, which is a geographical platform for the study of Chinese history, based at Harvard and in other universities across the world and in China. And the China Biographical Database Project, also based at Harvard and other universities, which is probably the most similar to what we are doing in terms of creating a prosopographical and biographical database. Let's now talk about how we go from analog to digital and the kind of sources we have been using. As historians, of course, we are very familiar with the printed sources. Here we see a Catholic prosopography. Prosopography is the study of social groups. This is a 1973 repertory of all the Jesuit missionaries in China, and it has also been translated into Chinese. And here we see how one of the biographies of these missionaries is organized. This is the one of the Jesuits with the date of birth, the date of emission of vows, embarkation, when he was ordained a priest, and so on. This represents, I would say, one of the cells of what then becomes broader understanding of the presence of Christianity in China and of Western presence in China in general between 1550 and 1950, which is the period that our database covers. Other kinds of sources might be more narrative, and then it is necessary, both in the case of what I've just shown or in this one, to extract this data and put them in Excel spreadsheets that will then be processed by our student researchers. Here we see an example. Other sources that cover Protestantism, the ones I just showed were about Catholicism, are, for example, the Educational Directory and Yearbook of China. And here you see the source and the kind of Excel spreadsheet being used by our researchers. The Educational Directory of China contains all kinds of information on schools. Many of them were organized by Protestant organizations. And as you can see, there is information both in English and in Chinese. The previous version, the previous sources were in French. So there is also a need for our researchers to know several languages in order to input this kind of information. And here again, we see how our student assistants analyze the single entries and then enter the information in the various cells. And so this requires, of course, knowledge of the organization of the mission, the institutional background, the geography, and so on. Here we see some sources that are a little bit more difficult to deal with. We have typewritten sources and handwritten Chinese characters. And of course, in these cases, it is not so easy to do an automatic reading or extract the data as easily as with printed sources. And here, of course, the human input is still quite important. There are also printed narrative sources, for example, collections of letters in many languages because missionaries were coming from all over the world. Here, for example, is a collection of letters from the 18th century in Italian, Latin, and other languages. And of course, this requires very advanced knowledge both of the background and the languages in order to be able to extract data. And of course, ultimately, the most important data to especially find original new information that is not available already in other printed sources are manuscripts. And we hope that in the future artificial intelligence will help us to parse these kind of sources and read them more easily. Right now we have to use either online or paper copies and decipher. And so in this case, for example, it's the baptismal record of a Jesuit missionary who later on became an important figure in the China mission. I myself did research on this individual, found online in the public archives of Nice the entry of his birth, and through that I was able to discover new information that was not available in existing printed repertories. He was ambassador of the Emperor of China to the papal court in the early 18th century, and I was able to make to reconstruct the genealogical tree of his own family, discovering that he himself came from an important political and diplomatic family. Another kind of information that we wanted to continue inputting in our database is geographical information. And here, for example, we have entries in French produced between the 1950s and the 1970s on missions in individual villages all across China, so really at a very micro-historical level. Let's talk now about, after having considered the sources, of the concept of Christianity as network, which is at the core of our project. The aims of our project is to offer to users geographical and chronological visualizations and to give information on the background of the individuals we're studying, both foreigners and Chinese, their family, nationality, age, their mobility across China, and the extent of their social networks, both in China but also globally, both within the church but also elsewhere in society. Here I have a few screenshots that show you the platform that we have created for use online. In this case, for example, if someone is interested in a particular individual, you will enter the name of that individual. This will give you the locations across the life of this individual where the missions stations were. And then you can click and learn more about the individual itself, including date of birth and death, other important information, the places where the person worked. Then we can also offer visualization of the social networks of the person. Here you see a yellow arrow indicating the individual and then the extended network. We can also do searches by institutions. In these cases, we see hospitals in China, and you can see the number of hospitals in important urban centers across China in the modern period. Once one goes into a city itself, in this case Shanghai, you can find several of these institutions, and then it's possible to click and learn more about the institutions themselves. We also have the possibility of looking at ecclesiastical and other geographical jurisdictions, in this case Vicariate Apostolic, and the members of the Vicariate Apostolics at the bottom, the personal relationships. But we talk about networks in the past. We also have to say that we need to build networks in the present across the globe, and so we have been building a network of students, researchers, and institutions in China, in Taiwan, in Europe, the United States, and we are continuing to have new partners in our work. We also have a network within Boston University and within our database. There is a core team with principal investigators, with some important collaborators that are indicated in our website. We have CHCD manager that manages students, and then we have a large number of research assistants, students who have helped us over the years to input data, and so far almost 150 of them in the course of 5 years. This semester I think we have 13 of them working on the project. We try to keep communication going by producing a newsletter, and the Gazetteer that comes out a few times a year that has, of course, the purpose of informing but also doing fundraising. And we try to interact at Boston University with the Office of the Provost and Office of Research to inform about the progress of our research. We have organized at the beginning of our experience an international workshop, partly in person and partly online, with several experts speaking on a variety of topics, and there are recordings of that experience online if you're interested in our website. So we also have applied for a national grant recently. We received a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and that has, of course, validated the kind of work that we have been doing and has allowed us to continue our work for the past couple of years. Some very brief information on technical features. There is an article actually that you can consult that was very recently published, Leaping and Bridging the Digital Gorge Development, User Experience and the China Historical Christian Database, written for the most part by Alex Mayfield, one of our collaborators and the architect of our database, and with Daryl Ireland and myself as a co-writer in the Journal of Digital Humanities, published by Tsinghua University in China, and it's available also on myacademia.edu site, and you can go there and read more about technical background of our project. Just to say a few general, make a few general points. The title refers to a digital gorge, and one of the main objective of our project is to really make it easy for people who do not have a lot of technical knowledge to use our data, to make visualizations, to do research, and we have adopted a graph database as our technical platform, which has general advantages on other kinds of database structures. It's less abstract, more intuitive, it gives ease of access. It has advantages for network analysis because it's technically agile and naturally additive over time, and it allows us to have a quicker planning, implementation, and analysis. This is what you will find on our site at the moment. This is release 1 from June 2022. These are the numbers of the individuals that we have on the database and their affiliations. If you are interested in going to the database from our webpage, you will go to the data tab, and this page will open, and here you can go to our documentation to learn more about our structure, the properties of our nodes and edges, our sources, and so on. You can download the data, and this will bring you to our GitHub page where you can download all the data. This is an open access database. In the last part, I want to talk a little bit about the project management and how we have been advancing data quality and quantity for our database. First of all, the main task and responsibility of our staff manager has been to oversee the data collection personnel. That means the students that over 5 years have been 150, and so this requires quite a lot of time and coordination. The students have to engage not only in the collection of the data, but also in data cleaning, in the location of archival sources, the organization, and the manager has also to publish the quarterly newsletter, organize workshops, conferences, and public events. This is the current data status. We are planning to release during summer of 2023 our second release, and these are the numbers of what has been done during last fall, and we are continuing with the students to add more. There is a very important pedagogical dimension also to our project. We want to create a community of students at Boston University and across the world, and we ask them to really commit a certain number of hours to come to training and to meetings, to participate in undergraduate research symposia, for example, the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program Symposia here at Boston University. And here you see from our newsletter some reports by students who have presented in the past at those symposia based on the data that they have studied in the database. What are the issues that we are encountering? Improper data formatting, a high turnover rate with the students who, of course, are graduating, the fact that there are many overseas researchers and we have to communicate online with them, and also negotiate over many time zones. We have found solution to that, and the machine has been working well with frequent video tutorials, encouraging really long-term commitment of at least a semester, if not more, a full academic year, and really a focus on building our own local team and sub-team structure where students are responsible. What is the way forward for us? Well, we, as in all projects, will need more financial support, more institutional support. We will need to hire new managers going forward, both for the managing of the staff as well as for technical issues. And we want to organize a research workshop and do publications, both online and on print, using our data. And we hope to continue raising funds, getting grants. We really want more support for digital scholarship and digital humanities here at Boston University, and CHAS really is a great opportunity for us to get that kind of support, get enough resources to hire a technical manager, a staff manager, and then continue collaboration with other institutions. Thank you very much.
So, Eugenio, this is fascinating. As someone, I'm a network analyst, social network analyst, and I've studied social networks in Renaissance Florence, so 14th, 15th century Florence. So I recognize what an immense contribution to open science this project is. So thank you for that. I guess I have a couple of questions, one technical and one perhaps more substantive. As I understood, you're able to create these sort of egocentric graphs based on the platform that you've created. Is the platform able to do more network analysis, or doing any sort of more network analysis, even things like centrality and so on? One should download the data and put it into something else. And I guess that leads to a second question. If it's able to do network analysis, have you created your own software, or is there like something running in the background, StatNet or something else that you're leveraging in order to be able to create these graphs? And then my substantive question is, can you say a little bit perhaps about your any substantive findings that you have based on a network analysis of Christianity in China, across China and Italy, anything at all, if you have any sort of substantive nuggets?
Yes. The purpose of our project is really to reach a very large public, a public of students, scholars, interested people who do not have a technical background. And so the platform that we have now produces visualizations, maps, lists, but does not have that kind of software for network analysis that you mentioned. It is possible, of course, to download all the data, and those who have enough technical knowledge can use the data the way they wish. It is not sure that in the future we'll not be able to do more, but for now we are really busy collecting data and creating our own data set. This data is very dispersed. It's in many different sources, in many different languages, so a lot of the work is happening at that level. But once we have the second release, I think we will be able to concentrate more on some of the aspects that you have mentioned. As to your second question, I think that the presentation of Darrell Ireland later on will give you an example of what kind of analysis one can do. So far, because the data has been inputted in the last couple of years or so, we have spent most of the energy there. And so everything is into the future, and we look forward to organizing workshops and having publications with case studies where we will ask people to do actually analysis of networks on a more microhistorical basis.
Thank you for your presentation. I had a question about collaboration. So for most humanities students, they're learning to work on their own and to do archival work on their own, and so to find data, do the interpretation and the analysis. How do you think that projects like this will kind of change humanities education and kind of the different sorts of skills that are needed to operate within an age of databases like this, both in contributing to them and later analyzing them?
Yeah, I think it can do it in two ways. For those who are simply using our own platform, the creation of visualizations, the analysis of lists and so on, can be a way to aggregate data and come to major conclusions about the state of Chinese-Western relations, especially cultural Chinese-Western relations between 1550 and 1950. It's a gigantic topic. Hundreds of thousands of people are involved. Centuries go by. There are so many changes. And so I believe that that's one first way of thinking of this, also in the classroom as a tool to be used by teachers with their students. The other, of course, dimension is that it hopefully will encourage more in-depth study of digital humanities tools by our students. We have actually some of our students who have become curious about digital humanities, have taken courses, and are now in a position to download data and manipulate them and do even more refined work on specific data sets within the larger data set. So I think that these are the two major pedagogical outcomes of the project as we see it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. The experience you had earlier of a database no longer being functional is drives into all of our consciousness as the problem of future-proofing things like this. There's nothing quite like acid-free paper to give yourself a long history. How do you protect this data set so that it can be used 10 years, 50 years, maybe even a century from now?
Well, we have a sustainability plan. That is also something that is required when you are applying for grants. So for our grant for the National Endowment for the Humanities, we created a sustainability plan. I would say that at this point, institutional support from Boston University in the future would be very important to be able to maintain this resource into the future. So far we have been trying to use software and platforms that are easily available, that are not proprietary, that are cheap to use, but obviously this is not the solution. The solution is to grow over time, to change, to adapt, to be able to have funding and to have an institution that somehow becomes responsible for this. So the Center for Global Christianity and Mission has been working on its own endowment. The School of Theology has been very supportive. We hope that the Faculty of Data Science, the Center for the Humanities, the Center for Innovation in Social Sciences, and so on, will represent institutional bridges towards the future and help us. Thank you.